Walter ate 2 spoonfuls of peanut butter every single morning for 11 years. He was proud of it. But at 71, he couldn't get out of his own recliner without rocking forward 3 times to build the momentum. He'd done the healthy thing every single day, and his body was still quietly getting weaker. Here's the part that matters to you. If you eat peanut butter believing it's protecting you after 60, there's a very good chance that one small thing about the way you're eating it is quietly canceling half the benefit, and almost nobody explains it in plain English. So I'm going to show you exactly what peanut butter does inside a body over 60, the one mistake that wastes most of it, and which jar to keep buying and which one to put back on the shelf for good. I've spent years in emergency medicine, which is a strange place to develop an opinion about peanut butter. But the ER is where you see the end point of things, not the beginning, the end. You don't see the person eating well at 40. You see the person at 68 whose heart or kidneys or muscles have been drifting in one direction for 20 years, and nobody caught the drift. And what I learned there is simple. The small, boring, repeated choices are the ones that decide how the last 30 years of a life actually go. Peanut butter is one of those boring choices. It sits in almost every American kitchen. It costs a few dollars, and most people have no idea whether it's helping them or quietly working against them. So let me reframe the whole question for you, because the way most videos ask it is wrong. The question is not, is peanut butter healthy? That's the lazy question, and the answer is boring. The real question is this: is the peanut butter in your cabinet actually doing something for a body that's over 60, or are you canceling it out without knowing? Because those are 2 completely different jars sitting on the same shelf with the same label on the front, and the difference between them is worth more to you than almost any supplement you could buy. Here's how I'm going to lay this out so you know it's worth staying to the end. First, what peanut butter actually does inside you. Ranked from what matters most after 60 down to what matters least. So you're not treating every benefit as equal, because they are not equal. Then, the single biggest mistake people make with it, the one that wasted most of Walter's 11 years, and it's not the one you're expecting. Then the 3 things that quietly cancel the benefit: ranked, so you know which one to fix first. Then exactly who needs to be careful, because peanut butter is genuinely not right for everyone. And at the very end, the amount, the timing, and the 10-second label test that tells you whether the jar in your hand is worth eating at all. Stay with me for that last part especially, because it's the part that changes what you put in your cart this week. All right, let's start with what matters most after 60. And for most people over 60, the thing that matters most is the heart and the blood vessels. So that's where we start. Cardiovascular disease is still the #1 cause of death in the United States. Not cancer, not accidents, the heart and the vessels that feed it. And here's where peanut butter earns its place, because this isn't a soft claim. In 2015, researchers at Vanderbilt published one of the largest studies ever done on this question in JAMA Internal Medicine. They followed more than 200,000 people, and a big piece of that group, more than 70,000 of them, came from the Southern Community Cohort Study, which is mostly lower income Americans, both black and white, in the American South. That detail matters, and I'll tell you why in a second. What they found was this: the people who ate the most peanuts and peanut butter had a 17 to 21% lower risk of dying from any cause over the study period, and a 23 to 38% lower risk of dying specifically from cardiovascular disease compared to the people who ate almost none. Now, let me translate that, because a percentage is easy to nod at and forget. A roughly 1 in 5 lower chance of dying, and up to a 1 in 3 lower chance of dying from your heart tied to a food that costs less than a cup of coffee. Read that again. 1 in 3. That is not a small effect. That is one of the better numbers you'll ever see attached to a single grocery item. And here's why that Southern community cohort detail matters so much. These were not wealthy people buying exotic superfoods. Peanuts were the nut that ordinary lower income Americans could actually afford and actually ate, which means the benefit wasn't hiding behind a price tag, no fancy store, no expensive label, just peanuts. Walnuts and almonds get all the magazine covers, but peanuts did the quiet work in the population that could least afford expensive food. If you've ever felt like the healthy foods on TV weren't built for your budget, this is the one that was. So, what is peanut butter actually doing in there? Think of your arteries, like the plumbing in an old house. Over decades, the pipes stiffen and the inner lining gets rough and pressure builds against the walls. Peanut butter works on that plumbing from a few different angles at once. About half the fat in it is monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat, the kind cardiologists actually want you to eat. Those fats lower LDL cholesterol, the type that builds up as plaque on the pipe walls, and they help support HDL, the type that helps carry it away. That's the part most people have heard. Here's the part most people have never heard. Peanut butter also contains a amino acid called arginine, and your body uses arginine to make something called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is basically the signal that tells your blood vessels to relax and widen. Picture a garden hose. When the hose relaxes and opens up, the same amount of water flows through with far less pressure. That's what nitric oxide does to your vessels. It's one of the natural ways your body keeps blood pressure from creeping up. So peanut butter isn't just about cholesterol. It's quietly helping the vessels themselves stay soft and open. And there's a mineral in here almost nobody mentions, and the original story on peanut butter usually skips it entirely. Magnesium. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter give you about 49 milligrams of magnesium, which is around 12% of what you need in a day. Why should you care? Because magnesium is one of the most common quiet shortfalls in the American diet. According to national intake data compiled by the National Institutes of Health, close to half of Americans across all ages get less magnesium than the estimated requirement. Nearly half. And older men are among the most likely to fall short. Magnesium helps regulate blood pressure. It helps your muscles relax instead of cramping. It steadies nerve signals, and it plays a role in how your body handles blood sugar. It's not flashy. It's the kind of thing you never notice until it's missing, like the oil in an engine. And most people over 60 are running a little low without ever being told. Now, I want to be honest with you because that's the whole point of this channel. Peanut butter is not a heart medication, and I am never going to tell you it is. If your blood pressure is high or your cholesterol is high, peanut butter does not replace anything your doctor has you on. What it does is stack the deck slightly in your favor every single day in a food you were going to eat anyway. And when you're over 60, slightly in your favor, repeated 1,000 times, is exactly how the good outcomes get built. The people I saw do best were almost never the ones chasing one dramatic fix. They were the ones who had 100 small things quietly pointing the right direction. That's the heart. That's number one. The second thing peanut butter does, and it matters almost as much after 60, is what it does to your blood sugar. And this one has a twist in it that even a lot of health conscious people have never heard. Here's the situation your body is in as it ages. When you're younger, your body handles a sugary or starchy meal pretty gracefully. The blood sugar goes up, insulin shows up, the sugar gets stored, everything settles. Insulin, by the way, is just the hormone that acts like a key unlocking your cells so sugar can get in out of the bloodstream. But as the decades pass, those locks get stickier. Insulin doesn't work quite as smoothly. So your blood sugar spikes higher after meals and then crashes lower afterward. And that crash is what you feel as the 3 in the afternoon slump, the sudden fog, the sudden hunger. And over years, those repeated spikes quietly damage blood vessels and nerves. Whether or not anyone has ever said the word diabetes to you, peanut butter is a natural break on that. It works through three things at once. The protein slows how fast carbohydrates turn into sugar. The fat slows down how fast your stomach empties, so the sugar trickles in instead of flooding in. And a small amount of fiber blunts the whole thing further. So when you spread peanut butter on a piece of toast, you are not eating peanut butter and toast as two separate things. The peanut butter is actively flattening the blood sugar spike from the bread. It's like putting a governor on an engine so it can't rev straight to the red line. The toast alone floors the pedal. The peanut butter holds it back. Now, here's the twist I promised you. And this is genuinely new to most people. There was a clinical trial out of Purdue University published in the British Journal of Nutrition that looked at what happens when people eat peanuts or peanut butter at breakfast. Yes, their blood sugar was steadier after breakfast, as you'd expect. But the surprising part was what happened at lunch. The blood sugar stayed steadier after the lunch meal, too. Hours later, even though the peanut butter was long gone. Researchers call this the second meal effect. Eating peanut butter in the morning didn't just smooth out that one meal. It smoothed out the next one. It's like the peanut butter set the tone for the whole day's blood sugar, not just the moment you ate it. So what do you do with that? It's simple and it's free. Front load your peanut butter at breakfast rather than late at night. A spoonful in your morning oatmeal or on your morning toast with a piece of fruit sets up steadier blood sugar that carries into the middle of the day, which is exactly the window where a lot of people over 60 feel that energy crash. You're not adding anything, you're just moving it earlier. And I want to say something reassuring here, because blood sugar is a topic that makes people anxious, and anxiety is not the goal. If your fasting blood sugar has been creeping up somewhere in that pre-diabetes range of 100 to 125 milligrams per deciliter, that is not a verdict. That is a warning light on the dashboard. And a warning light is a gift because it comes on while you still have room to act. Peanut butter is one small lever among several. It is not the whole answer, and I would never pretend it is. But it is a lever that costs you nothing and works with your breakfast instead of against it. Let me quickly fold in the minerals and the vitamins here because they're real, but they don't each deserve their own chapter. And part of being honest with you is not inflating every little thing into a miracle. Peanut butter carries copper, which helps build red blood cells and keeps blood vessels structurally sound. It carries phosphorus, which teams up with calcium for your bones. It carries potassium, which helps hold your blood pressure down and your heartbeat regular. It carries a little iron. And B vitamins, especially niacin and thiamine, which your body uses to turn food into usable energy. Thiamine, in particular, becomes more important after 50 because when it runs low, it shows up as exactly the vague stuff people blame on age, weakness, brain fog, low mood. Fatigue that a full night's sleep doesn't fix. And there are antioxidants in there too, compounds that act like your body's cleanup crew, mopping up the molecular wear and tear that builds up with age. None of these on their own is a headline. Together, quietly, in a food you eat anyway, they add up. That's the honest version. Not magic, just a steady, real contribution. Now, stay with me because this is the part I most want you to hear, and it's the part that explains what actually happened to Walter. This is the single biggest mistake people make with peanut butter, and it's the one that wasted most of his 11 years. If you send this video to one person, This is the section you'll be sending it for. Everyone tells you peanut butter is good for your muscles. 2 tablespoons, about 7 grams of protein, all 9 essential amino acids, the building blocks your body can't make on its own. All of that is technically true. And it has quietly misled a lot of people over 60, including Walter, into thinking that eating peanut butter is protecting their muscle. Here is the mistake. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. As you age, your muscles develop something researchers call anabolic resistance. In plain English, your muscle gets a little deaf to protein. When you were 30, a modest amount of protein was enough to flip the switch that says, build and repair muscle now. After 60 or so, that same amount of protein knocks on the door and the muscle barely answers. The signal has to be louder to get through. And the thing that turns the volume up, the specific trigger that flips that muscle building switch, is an amino acid called leucine. Think of leucine as the light switch and protein as the electricity. You can have plenty of electricity in the wires, but if you don't hit the switch hard enough, the light doesn't come on. Research on older adults points to a threshold. To reliably flip that switch, an older person needs roughly 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine in a single meal, sitting inside about 25 to 30 grams of protein in that same meal. That's the loud enough line. Now, here's the number that matters. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter give you about 7 grams of protein and only around half a gram of leucine. Half a gram. The threshold is 2.5 to 3. So peanut butter, eaten by itself, doesn't come close to flipping the switch in an older body. It knocks on the door far too quietly. That is why Walter could eat it faithfully for 11 years and still lose the strength to get out of his own chair. He wasn't wrong to eat it. He was wrong to think it was by itself saving his muscle. It never was. But here is the fix. And it takes about 10 seconds and no extra money. You don't throw out the peanut butter. You make it louder. You pair it with something that pushes that meal over the leucine line. Peanut butter on toast with a glass of milk. Peanut butter stirred into Greek yogurt. Peanut butter with a couple of eggs on the side. Peanut butter blended into a smoothie with milk or a scoop of a protein you tolerate. The peanut butter brings flavor, healthy fat, and steadiness. The dairy or the eggs bring the leucine that actually flips the switch together that breakfast crosses the threshold. Peanut butter alone does not. That single change, pairing instead of eating it plain, is the difference between a food that tastes healthy and a meal that actually helps you keep the muscle that keeps you in your own home. Because that's what this is really about. Muscle after 60 isn't about looking good. It's about getting off the toilet without help, catching yourself when you trip instead of falling, and staying out of the assisted living brochure your kids keep leaving on the counter. Before we leave the benefits, there's one more worth naming quickly, because it's the one Walter's daughter noticed before anyone noticed his legs. His mood and his mind. When your blood sugar stops spiking and crashing all day, your brain stops riding that same roller coaster. Steady fuel means steadier thinking. Fewer afternoon fog, banks, less of that irritability that isn't really about the person in front of you. The B vitamins and the magnesium feed the nervous system. The polyphenols, those cleanup crew compounds, help calm the low-grade inflammation in the brain that's been linked to both low mood and memory decline. I'm not going to oversell this. Peanut butter is not an antidepressant, and it will not prevent dementia. But steadier blood sugar and better nutrient status genuinely do show up as steadier mood and clearer afternoons. And for a lot of older adults, a clear afternoon is not a small thing. So that's the benefit side. Ranked. Heart and vessels first. Blood sugar second. Muscle third. But only if you pair it. Brain and mood riding along behind steady blood sugar. Now I have to turn the corner because everything I just told you can be quietly canceled And this is the part almost no video tells you because it's not as fun as the benefits. There are three things that take a genuinely good food and turn it into something between useless and harmful. I'm going to rank them worst first so you know exactly what to fix when you get up and look in your cabinet. The number one canceller, the worst offender, is what the manufacturer added to the jar. For decades, the food industry took a naturally good food and wrecked it in two ways. First, hydrogenated oil. Some commercial peanut butters add partially hydrogenated oil to keep the peanut oil from separating so the jar looks smooth and never needs stirring. The problem is that partially hydrogenated oil is where trans fat comes from, and trans fat is about the single worst thing you can do to your cholesterol. It raises the bad LDL and lowers the good HDL at the same time. So you'd be eating peanut butter for your heart while the additive is doing the exact opposite to your heart. It's like buying a water filter that quietly adds lead. Second, added sugar. A lot of the famous, sweet, creamy brands, the ones a whole generation grew up on, add sugar, sometimes a surprising amount. And now you're taking the food that's supposed to steady your blood sugar and handing your body a dose of the very thing it was supposed to slow down. You've turned the brake back into a gas pedal. Here's the reassuring part. And it costs you nothing but 10 seconds. You can defeat the number one canceller by reading 5 words on the back of the jar, turn it around, and look at the ingredient list. A good jar says essentially peanuts, maybe peanuts, salt. That's it. That's the whole list. If you see partially hydrogenated anything, put it back on the shelf. If you see sugar or corn syrup or sugar hiding under another name near the top of the list, put it back. You are not looking for a fancy label or an organic seal or a health claim on the front. You are looking for a short back. The shorter the ingredient list, the better the jar. That one habit, reading the back instead of the front, protects you from the worst mistake people make in this entire aisle. The number 2 canceller is one most people have never even heard of. And I want to handle it carefully because it's real, but it is not a reason to panic. It's a mold toxin called aflatoxin. Here's the plain version. Peanuts grow underground, and in warm, humid conditions, certain molds can grow on them and produce aflatoxin, which the National Cancer Institute links to liver damage and over long-term high exposure, liver cancer. Now, before anyone throws out their pantry, hear the whole thing because context is everything. Here in the United States, the FDA actively tests peanuts and peanut butter for aflatoxin and enforces a strict limit, and there has never been a documented outbreak of aflatoxin illness from American peanut butter. The system works. This is a chronic, long-term, high exposure concern, not a you ate a bad spoonful concern. But here's the counterintuitive part, the part that flips what a lot of health-minded people assume. You might think the small batch, natural, grind it yourself peanut butter is automatically the safest from toxins. Sometimes it's the opposite. The big national brands blend enormous lots of peanuts and run them through high-speed sorting and testing that pulls out damaged, moldy nuts and dilutes any contamination across a huge batch. Some smaller or imported products and some grind your own machines that don't get cleaned often can actually test higher. So natural on the front of the jar does not automatically mean lower toxin. It's not that natural is bad. It's that safety comes from testing and sourcing, not from the marketing word on the label. What do you actually do with this? Buy from reputable brands that stand behind their testing. Store your peanut butter somewhere cool and dry, and once it's open, keeping it in the refrigerator slows everything down. And use your nose if peanut butter or any nuts smell musty, stale, or off, don't eat them. That old, sharp cardboard smell is your body's built in warning system, and it's worth trusting. The number three canceller is the gentlest of the three, but it matters for a specific group of you, and it's salt. Standard salted peanut butter runs somewhere around 140 to 150 milligrams of sodium in 2 tablespoons. On its own, that's not alarming. But if you're one of the many people over 60 on a blood pressure medication, or if your doctor has told you to watch your salt, that sodium adds up quietly across a day full of other salty foods, and it can nudge against the blood pressure benefit you were eating peanut butter to get in the first place. The American Heart Association wants most adults under 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day, and ideally closer to 1,500 for people already dealing with high blood pressure. Peanut butter alone won't blow that budget, but it's part of the running total. The fix is easy. Buy the unsalted natural version. And here's the reassuring thing I've watched happen with patients over and over. Your taste for salt actually resets. The unsalted version tastes a little flat for about a week, and then your palate recalibrates, and after that, you genuinely stop missing it. Give it 7 days before you decide. So there are your three cancelers, ranked, added junk in the jar, worst, and the easiest to fix by reading the back. Aflatoxin, real but managed, handled by good sourcing and simple storage. And salt, gentle, but worth switching to unsalted if your blood pressure is on your mind. Notice the pattern. The benefits of peanut butter are real, but they are conditional. They depend on which jar stored how, eaten how. That's the whole difference between Walter's neighbor, who's still walking 2 miles a morning, and Walter, who did the ritual but got the details wrong. Now, I have to be straight with you about something because this channel is built on trust and not on hype. Peanut butter is not right for everyone. And I'd rather you hear the honest exceptions from me than assume something that isn't true for your body. Let me walk through who needs to be careful roughly in order of how serious it is. At the very top, and this one is absolute, is peanut allergy. If you have a true peanut allergy, none of this applies to you. And even a trace can be dangerous. A real peanut allergy reaction that involves the throat tightening, trouble breathing, swelling, or lightheadedness is not a wait and see situation. That's an epinephrine situation, and it's a call 911 situation, and you do not drive yourself. I'm saying that plainly because people underestimate it. But if you have that allergy, you already know. And this whole conversation was never about you. The next group is people with chronic kidney disease. And this one deserves real attention because it's more common than people think, and most don't know they have it. According to the CDC and the National Kidney Foundation, around 37 million American adults have chronic kidney disease, and roughly 9 out of 10 of them don't know it. Let that sit for a second. 9 out of 10. Your kidneys are quiet. They don't hurt when they start to struggle. Here's why peanut butter matters for this group specifically. Peanut butter is fairly high in potassium and phosphorus, two minerals that healthy kidneys clear easily, but struggling kidneys can let build up in the blood. If your kidneys are working normally, this is a non-issue. And the potassium is actually a plus. But if you have more advanced kidney disease or you on dialysis, peanut butter is something to portion carefully and talk to your doctor or a kidney dietitian about. This is exactly why at your next visit, it's worth asking for a simple number called your EGFR, which is basically a report card on how well your kidneys are filtering. Most people have never asked for it. It's usually already in your blood work. You just have to ask what it was. Then there's people with pancreatitis or gallbladder disease. The issue there is the fat. Even though it's healthy fat, a big load of fat can trigger a flare-up in those conditions, and a gallbladder attack or a pancreatitis flare is genuinely miserable and sometimes an emergency. If that's you, this is worth a real conversation with your doctor. But I don't want to just leave you with a no, because there's actually a useful option here that a lot of people don't know exists. It's called powdered peanut butter. They take the peanuts, press most of the oil out, and grind what's left into a powder. You can stir into oatmeal or yogurt or a smoothie. It keeps most of the protein and the peanut flavor, but it has something like 70 to 80% less fat and roughly a third of the calories. Now, I'll be honest about the trade off because there always is one. When you take the fat out, you also lose a lot of the heart healthy fats and the vitamin E that come with them. So, powdered peanut butter isn't a straight upgrade for everyone, but for someone with a gallbladder or pancreas issue, or someone on a tight calorie budget who still wants the taste and the protein, it's a genuinely useful tool that most people have walked past in the aisle without noticing. And the last group is simpler. If you're watching your weight, the caution isn't the peanut butter, it's the spoon. 2 tablespoons is 1 serving, and it's around 190 calories. Eaten by the serving, peanut butter actually helps with weight because the fat and protein keep you full and quiet the hunger hormones for hours, so you snack less later. But eaten straight out of the jar with a big spoon while you're standing at the counter, it disappears fast, and the calories add up before you've noticed. The food isn't the problem. The unmeasured spoon is. Put it on something, measure it once or twice so your eye learns what a real serving looks like, and then you don't have to think about it again. Which brings us to the practical part you've been waiting for. How much and when, and how to actually use it. For most people over 60, 1 to 2 tablespoons a day is the sweet spot, the range where the benefits show up without the calories getting away from you. 1 tablespoon is about 95 calories. 2 is about 190. Timing, we already covered the most important piece. Front loaded toward the morning because of that second meal effect, so it steadies your blood sugar into the middle of the day. And remember, the single most important upgrade in this whole video, do not eat it plain and expect it to protect your muscle. Pair it, toast plus a glass of milk, yogurt plus a spoonful of peanut butter, something that pushes that meal over the leucine line so the muscle switch actually flips. A few small mechanics that make a real difference. Buy natural, ideally unsalted if your blood pressure is a concern. The oil will separate and float to the top because there's no additive holding it in, and that separation is a good sign, not a bad one. It means nothing fake is in there. Stir it in, and here's a trick people love. Store the jar upside down for a day or two before you open it, so the oil redistributes down through the whole jar instead of pooling at the top. Once it's open, keep it in the refrigerator. That keeps the oil from going rancid and slows down anything that might want to grow. And while you're at it, if you're on Medicare, remember that your annual wellness visit costs you nothing, no copay, no deductible, and almost nobody uses it. That's the visit where you ask for your numbers, your blood pressure, your A1C, your cholesterol, and that EGFR I mentioned. Peanut butter is one small lever. Knowing your actual numbers is the bigger one. And for a lot of you, it's already free. Let me bring this all together, because if you remember nothing else, I want you to remember the shape of it. Here's the one pattern to carry out of this video. Peanut butter is a genuinely good food that most people are quietly using at half power. So do 3 things in this order. First, flip the jar over and read the back. Peanuts, maybe salt, nothing else. If you see hydrogenated oil or added sugar, that jar is working against you, and you put it back. Second, move it to the morning and never eat it plain. Pair it with milk, yogurt, or eggs, so the meal actually crosses the line that flips your muscle building switch. Because after 60, peanut butter by itself knocks too quietly to be heard. Third, if your blood pressure your kidneys, or your gallbladder are part of your story, adjust it to your body. Unsalted for blood pressure, a conversation with your doctor for kidney disease. Powdered peanut butter if fat is a problem. Read the back, pair it, adjust it. That's the whole thing. And think back to Walter for a second, because his story has a good ending. It wasn't the peanut butter that failed him. He was eating a good food faithfully for 11 years and getting maybe half of what it had to offer because he ate it plain and nobody had ever explained the muscle piece to him. The month he started having it with a glass of milk and 2 eggs in the morning and started actually working that muscle with a few sit to stands out of the recliner was the month the trend finally turned, not overnight, but by the end of the year, he was getting out of that chair on the first try. Same jar, mostly. Different understanding. That's really the message of this whole channel. The body usually whispers before it screams. It gave Walter years of small signals before it took his easy chair away from him, and the whole game is learning to hear the whisper and act on it while acting still works. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to overhaul your whole kitchen this week. You need the next useful step. And your next useful step is sitting in your cabinet right now. So here's what I'd love you to actually do. And it takes about a minute. Tonight or first thing tomorrow, go pull your peanut butter out and turn it around. Read the ingredient list out loud. If it's clean, peanuts, and maybe salt, good. You're set. Now just start pairing it in the morning. If it's got hydrogenated oil or sugar in it, that jar goes on the shopping list to be replaced. Then drop me a comment and tell me what your jar actually said, because I read them and I promise you're going to be surprised how many people find sugar in a jar they thought was healthy. Tell me your brand. Tell me your age and where you're watching from. And if someone in your life is over 60 and eats peanut butter thinking it's protecting their strength, send them this video specifically for the muscle part, because that one misunderstanding is costing people the thing they want most, which is to stay strong enough to live in their own home on their own terms. If this was useful to you, the honest, no hype version of health that you can actually act on, subscribing genuinely helps more people over 60 find it. But that's secondary. The main thing is the jar in your kitchen, and the minute it takes to check it, flip it over, read the back, pair it in the morning. That's the step. Go take it.